Penn Station on the east side, on the 7th Avenue side. It's a stone's
Yeah,
throw
but-
from the 7th.
It's a kidney stone.
It's quite an upgrade.
Good evening from South Orange, New Jersey, the Tibet Center. So this is our first class in New Jersey this week. Now we are having our Monday night classes in New York City at 151 West 30th Street and on the third floor. And then Wednesday classes are here. So we'll begin with a prayer for the spreading of the teaching throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. Now, the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas, called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form, emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, our compositional factors in consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear and transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge the mantra is proclaimed, Tadyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvaha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Now we generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, so let us begin by doing one rosary of Om Mani Padme Hum. Again, thinking of compassion, developing the wish to remove the suffering of others. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Om Mani Padme Hum. So, compassion, that wish to remove the suffering of others. How do we go about developing that wish to remove the suffering of others?
How do we go about?
Developing the
Developing
wish to remove the suffering of others.
Wishing that all beings have peace.
Yeah, and how do we generate that wish that all beings have peace?
We consider our own feelings, and when we feel best is with the sense of equanimity or peace, and then we want everyone else to enjoy it too.
So, do we naturally, once we have recognized how we wish to have peace, do we naturally have a wish that others have that peace?
Well, maybe not all others.
We'll leave a few out.
It's called equanimity.
Maybe some others.
So how do we
Select.
work at developing? What's the method? What should we think about to develop some a wish that extends farther and farther out?
Well, you start with a small circle and then try and build on it. You start with your immediate family and, your parents, if you have them. You wish your mother would have more peace of mind, your father, and so on. And then to your neighbors and immediate acquaintances. And then you start getting a little bit more ambitious. Or you contemplate the possibility of nuclear war, for example, and then you think, oh boy, if we can't, wow, and then think of the aggression that is behind that. And then you might think, well, if everybody could lose some of that aggression, if there wasn't that tendency, and that in a way is wishing for them to have peace.
So we can, by thinking of this threat to all humanity or all living beings on planet Earth, develop a wish that they be free from suffering?
Yeah, that would be one method.
Anyone have another method?
Well, the traditional method that I've heard is thinking that all beings have been your mother at some time in the past. I sometimes have trouble stretching my mind to do that. And so what I've done, if I go into like a supermarket, I'll look around at everyone and think, well, if there was a mass shooting in here all of a sudden, any one of those people could be the hero that rescues everyone. And these people are amazing, and that's in everyone. And so I kind of use scenarios like that to try and extend it.
Mass shootings. The society's become used to it. You expect it.
So the technique of thinking that all sentient beings have been our mother is one that leads not just to a compassionate attitude towards all these beings who have shown us the kindness that our mother has, but to the assumption of some kind of responsibility towards them. That's something, an outgrowth of compassion. It is a result of compassion. It is more than compassion. It is bodhicitta. It is the determination to act upon that compassion and work towards developing the ability to actually be able to benefit
That
others.
requires a great deal of faith.
Faith in?
In what the fact, well, if you're operating under the assumption that all sentient beings have been our mother, that requires a great deal of faith. That's
So-
not something that a layperson would necessarily think of.
No, it's not something that they would necessarily think of, but in order for it to have any kind of solidity, any kind of real effect on us, it can't be based on faith. It can't be based on what you seem to be suggesting as some kind of blind faith.
Well, you get used to it. You get used to the concept.
Yeah, but the concept has to be based not on a leap into the unknown
Yes.
faith. It has to be based on a real acceptance of the fact that you, Leslie, today, right now, are the result of a prior moment of you, a prior moment of that prior moment, a prior moment of that prior moment. And you go back and back and back to conception. You go back and you find that there is no beginning in this process, and that for each or most of the lives that you have had in this infinite series of lives, you must have had a mother. And therefore, there is no one among the infinite beings whom you can point to and say, that person's never been my mother. Because if you go back infinite past lives, there is no possibility of someone not having been your mother. And it is based on that rationale, on that sort of logical reasoning, that you actually view all sentient beings as your mother. And that's not faith. You can, that for this meditation to really have some kind of effect on you, I think it has to be deeper than...
That's not faith, you're saying.
Well, you have to contemplate it somewhat, though, and to absorb it.
You have to contemplate it to absorb it, yes. But you have to go through the reasoning, which you then contemplate. The reasoning that establishes that there is no one whom you can actually be sure has not been your mother. That's quite something.
Grand scale mathematics.
I can't be sure that you haven't been my mother, Leslie.
Yes.
And you, and even you, Maya.
Yeah, but
That was his fault.
As for Tony, you've been my father, yes.
no, but,
A good Italian father.
That's right. Hey,
people can have peace
get
of
over here.
mind, achieve equanimity without adopting that point of view.
I wonder.
All right, so equanimity is an equal attitude towards all sentient beings. And to have true compassion, that should be an attitude that we develop. And there are different techniques for developing equanimity. For example, thinking, just as I want to be happy and not suffer, you want to be happy and don't want to suffer. And if I really think, just as I want to be happy and don't want to suffer, and I go from person to person, and I think, and really this is something, when you sit on the subway, when you're walking down the street, when you see squirrels running around, when you see whatever the animal is, if you think, just as I want to be happy, that ant or that bee or that squirrel wants happiness and not to suffer. That's how you begin to develop equanimity. Based on that, you have let's say the flat basis for then cultivating bodhicitta. Without that, your attitude that you wish to attain enlightenment in order to help all sentient beings is flimsy, because we all have our natural attachments to those we're close to, and so that's equanimity. But back to compassion. They say that to really develop compassion, we first of all must be aware of our state of suffering. And here, it's not just this our discomfort because it's cold, or what they call the suffering of suffering. Not just the fact that every pleasurable situation eventually ends and we end up being disillusioned or dissatisfied, or we experience the end of that pleasure, but the all-pervasive suffering of what's it called, conditioning, the fact that we are here in cyclic existence, clinging to a sense of self, abiding within samsara, it is that state of suffering that we have to recognize in ourselves and recognize in others. So that the suffering that becomes the basis of truly having compassion shouldn't be limited to the suffering that others are experiencing, or the suffering of change. When we see very, very fortunate, lucky, wealthy people, we should develop compassion for them, knowing that that's going to come to an end and they're going to suffer as a result of it. But we also have to think of that underlying all-pervasive suffering that everyone experiences all the time as they are within cyclic existence. And that one, now, I think that one's harder to feel when we're walking through, life. But if we sit and think about it, we can identify with it ourselves, and see that, and accept that everyone else is experiencing that. That's what we have to develop the wish to remove.
Whether they realize that they're in that situation or not, most people don't. We have to work on it. When Buddhists realize the pervasive suffering element, the conditioning, whatever you want to call it. Most people...
In developing compassion, maybe people are aware of the suffering of suffering, but they hardly identify the suffering of change as being suffering.
That's pleasure.
So we're not in developing compassion. Our concern is not with whether or not they identify it as suffering. When we see people who we identify as being, at the top of their situation, wealthy, happy, healthy, doing well, if we look at them and we say, yeah, but they're going to get older and older, and they're going to get sick, and they're going to suffer, and here they are, oblivious to that, ignorant of that, and your heart does go out, but you have to actually work at it. Yeah.
How does one know that they were oblivious or ignorant of that? Like, is it because you're saying, because someone has behavior that demonstrates that, or is it just sometimes it feels like there can be a tone to that that feels uncomfortable. I don't know why. Maybe it's condescension or something. That feels like, well, they're happy now, but eventually it's really going to be bad.
Well, think of it initially. You have to think of it in respect to yourself.
Because I've experienced it.
You are trying to see the pleasures that you experience and recognize that they come to an end, and that is painful, and to then recognize that as they experience their happiness, that's going to come to an end. It's not a patronizing attitude we should have. It's one of, the poor things they are experiencing. They're doing well. They're being helpful. Think of a very successful doctor. He's really helping people. He's really and he's thriving in a certain way. And then you realize that his abilities and his position and all those things are going to diminish, and that's not a patronizing attitude. It's a recognition of reality.
It's just how things work.
But the most important, the one the essence of true compassion and the essence of then the development of bodhicitta is the recognition of the all-pervasive suffering that people are experiencing. That we have to, and that was tough, because we don't see it. We don't, that's underlying. That's sort of bubbling within within all sentient beings, and since the other two grosser qualities of suffering are evident, to see that as being
What are
something.
examples of all pervasive suffering?
The fact that we are within cyclic existence.
Ah, I see.
And what is being within cyclic existence? It's not that we're stuck in on planet Earth, or in this. It's that we're holding on to a sense of self that causes us to engage in afflictive behavior and therefore suffer. So it's the attainment of enlightenment is not arriving at some wonderful place. It's simply experiencing ourselves, our being, in an enlightened way, and therefore experiencing the world around us in an. It's simply a transformation of our attitude. So compassion. We read the Heart Sutra and we generated bodhicitta. And the two elements by which we extricate ourselves from suffering, and the two elements by which we develop the ability to help others, are the development of compassion, feeling of responsibility towards others, and the recognition of no self, the recognition that there is no me at the core of this belief in myself, that there is no independent. We have a bunch of parts, which I think of as me, as Nikki. But those parts are the parts of Nikki, and Nikki is the holder of the parts. There is a mutual dependence, which means that I am not independent. If I am dependent on my parts, how can I be independent? And yet I hold on to a sense of self, and I think of it as being independent, and I hardly consider it to not have some kind of basis, and that becomes the basis for my wishing to satisfy myself, wishing to protect myself, and all the things that then lead to afflictive behavior that cause me to suffer. So the two things we have to work at is recognizing selflessness or lack of self, and developing compassion. And so I'm saying all these things tonight as we sit here as Buddhists contemplating secular ethics. Essentially, as we go about the trainings that His Holiness is inspiring in this wonderful book, Beyond Religion, we, to do our work most effectively, have to work at developing compassion, developing a feeling of responsibility towards others, and that diminishes our sense of self. And then we have to actually undermine the basis for any belief in self, recognizing that logically there cannot be a self, there cannot be an independent me. So those two things, as we have these discussions, we should think of how these relate to the
Right.
different things that.
Yeah, it's hard. That's interesting. There's
His
a lot
Holiness-
there. You can go about it in mental exercises. My compassion diminishes my sense of self. Well, I'm the compassion. I don't know. That's really deep. I mean, too much for me. I quit. No, no, it is, because you study. They seem to segment them too. You study emptiness, and method and wisdom, or whatever they've actually come together. They have to. I can't figure out how, why, when, but it's very interesting.
But you have to think about it.
Yes, of course,
to get it.
yes.
You have to think about
And make it an exercise to think about it as you go through life. I mean, yes, if we can think about it, let's say at the beginning of the day, if we can set our motivation, develop compassion, determined to devote our day to being of some kind of benefit to others, or working on ourselves in some virtuous way, and also working at developing some recognition that there is no independent me.
That's probably the king of well, I can't even formulate that. That's a very, very main central. When it comes together, there, both sides. Very interesting. He pokes at it so nicely. You can see it.
This whole book is these two things.
And at the same time, he's conditioning your mind to be a better person on a very
Mundane.
easy level to understand. But he's going a genius, more than that.
So, we arrived last night at page 91.
Greed versus the joy of philanthropy.
In today's materialistic world, there is a trend of people becoming slaves to money,
Amen.
as though they are parts of a huge money-making machine. This does nothing for human dignity, freedom, and genuine well-being. Wealth should serve humanity, and not vice versa. The massive disparities of wealth now apparent in the world, disparities that are more extreme than ever before and are still growing, are very distressing. The stark economic inequalities of today's world, not just between the global north and the global south, but between rich and poor within individual nations, are not only morally wrong, but sources of many practical problems, including war, sectarian violence, and the social tensions created by large-scale economic migration. On the issue of economic inequality, I consider myself at least half Marxist. When it comes to creating wealth and thereby improving people's material conditions, capitalism is without doubt very effective. But capitalism is clearly inadequate as any kind of social ideal, since it is only motivated by profit without any ethical principle guiding it. Unbridled capitalism can involve terrible exploitation of the weak. Thus, we need to adopt an approach to economic justice which respects the dynamism of capitalism while combining it with a concern for the less fortunate. So, let us discuss this.
I would like to see this as an op-ed in the Times. It might influence people.
Me too.
Yes, but thinking of this as an op-ed in the Times, what we really have to think about is how to apply this to ourselves. We're not here to go out and make political statements or change the world. We're really here to figure out how to change ourselves, apply these things to ourselves. And here, we have to recognize within each of us that little greedy tendency that's there, and work at applying the antidote to that, which is contentment, which is a recognition of the deeper pleasure, deeper than the satisfaction from getting what we want, that is derived from being content with what we have. I mean, a new camera is always
Even a good used one, that's, you know,
I'm content with what I have.
now.
Yes.
a classic.
So,
I think about that lately often in terms of material goods, having, maybe in having a house now, thinking about the things that you can put in your house and seeing how it takes more money in order to kind of fuel the things that you put in your house and kind of protect the things that now you have and you bought. Only spurring one to make more money in order to protect the things that you have in your house. It keeps going and going. And I think it makes me think about, yeah, that kind of cyclic pattern that exists when you start to think about how much effort it really takes to have belongings and how much money it takes to have belongings, to the point that it perpetuates your mind to feel like you need to keep up with having these belongings, so I need more money, and I need to kind of pursue things that don't necessarily benefit others, but benefit my ego to be able to protect them in some way. Maybe coming off the holidays, it's extra fluorescent or something, but, yeah, belongings, whether they cost me money to get or not, it costs money to have them somehow. And so it perpetuates that.
They're a mental drain sometimes,
Yeah, it's true.
and clear thinking,
It's
they
very true.
take up room.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to think of the things that we need as tools.
Yeah.
And if we think of things as tools, they have a validity. There's nothing wrong with a camera.
Yeah, I knew you were getting there. Amen. That's good.
It's
I'm
our
glad-
attachment to
For a while
the
I was
camera.
worried about it. Oh, thanks.
Well, many people need cars.
Yeah?
Yes.
And they
Now you
require
do.
all that
And now I'm
et
finding
cetera,
that
et
out.
cetera, require enormous amount of attention.
It's so true.
And an attachment may develop.
Yes.
But
So-
this is human, that's human beings.
No, but it's human beings. But if we're working on ourselves, we have to really recognize the difference between the vehicle as a mode of transportation, as a tool, and thinking of it as, I want to be driving a such and such, and then I can get concerned about it, and if it gets scratched, it hurts, and all the things that come along, and as having to care for it, and the the work that goes into it.
Yeah.
You have a car?
No, but
In Connecticut.
my husband does.
Hmm.
So we have a vehicle.
You have the great vehicle.
You have to put it in the garage, you have to take it out, inspect it. You have to have the tires
Rotated.
all
That's
that.
what they do, they rotate.
Yes, yes.
Tires rotate. That's what they
Yes,
do.
that's what they do.
That's what moves the car
It
forward.
goes forward, and you know it stops
The motor rotates the tires,
Yes.
and
I'm finding out the value of cars now that mine is in the shop, so
Many people need a house.
everyone needs a
Yes.
house.
so these are tools. So it's we're not undermining the importance of tools. The development of contentment is not saying that tools are, our basic needs are not necessary. It's being content, is working towards diminishing that tendency to wish for more.
I experienced this, sorry, more recently, we had a problem with our sink. We actually had a filtration system we had to put in our sink, and we got a quote from a plumber, and the plumber, it was really expensive. We kept contemplating whether we were going to, we had to get another quote from a different plumber. Everybody was really expensive. And then I realized that if I got a couple of tools that cost a lot less, I was able to figure it out myself. And I did it, and it was great. And it cost me $50 instead of $600.
So if
Very
we have
good.
plumbing problems here, Darren,
Darren, take notes.
But, yeah.
can you, our heater needs to have the pilot gizmo changed. Could you do that?
Actually, this is amazing. We came home from our trip from the holidays. Our heat's completely out again. It was out before. So then I started to watch.
Same.
It was 45 degrees in our house when we came home. It's really,
Not
we
funny.
stayed at a hotel. It was not, safe. It was 3 a.m. because we got up a late flight, and we came home, and I'm sitting there trying to light the pilot, and then I'm watching a YouTube video to see what's going on.
Everyone does
And
that.
I learned that the thermocoupler's out. I knew it was out. I couldn't change it myself, but I learned what it actually was. And some part of that was actually satiating in a way. When we needed the sink fixed, it came to mind that in order to fix the sink, I don't mind working more to get the sink fixed. But it also implicates if you can do it with tools and your brain for much less, meaning that you don't have to rat race in order to afford someone else to do it for no reason. I'm starting to see that maybe with a home, that there is a spectrum of what is just using your brain and what is kind of like making it so that it's more difficult for you and causing you to suffer by working
The whole
endlessly.
catalog ethic.
Yeah. So tools, it's very apropos. That's on my mind lately.
Well,
Now
you fixed
buy
the
some
sound
nice tools
system
than to
when
pay someone else
Ricochet
to
was
do it
here.
if I can,
So-
you know.
Don't say buy some nice tools. Buy some
Tools.
tools.
Yes, so sorry. There I go again.
Don't buy something.
Yeah, now I need the,
Hasselblad.
yeah,
Buy a
the
camera.
Mercedes of hammers,
Nikki?
but yeah, I'd rather buy the hammer than pay someone to do it if I can. But tools are interesting for sure.
So you can practice here if you like.
Okay.
That will help us. But
Got it.
we're joking, but I think that even these jokes help us sort of change the tone with the problems that we have and change our sort of attitude towards
Well, you
buying
said-
this or that.
She said avoiding the rat racing to get better this or that. Yeah,
I think
that's
that
a big
sometimes
plus.
it can only be seen as, or whatever, this is my own projection and maybe what I've experienced at times, but it's like, especially with paying someone to install a, water filter or something, it was almost like shameful to try and do it myself. There was like a funny feeling of that, of what if I don't do it right, what if I do it wrong? I could mess up, I could look stupid in doing it. And getting past that little piece of ego to just say, or I could just try and it's fine and I can call somebody if I don't. It's like, there was a lot of weird things that kept coming up and just trying to fix my water filter.
Oh, look, that's.
Kept provoking
right.
this sense of shame around doing it myself instead of paying someone else to do it. And I think that might be, a capitalist feeling in some ways, is it's more, fancy to just call someone to come in or something like that. I don't know, maybe that's permeating
Since all
my
this came
brain.
up, you're watching your mind. Not just watching how to do this, but you're figuring my attitude towards it now, what am I?
Yeah.
And a lot comes in and
Yeah.
interrupts you from figuring it out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's true,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
It's interesting.
And these tools, when you talk about, fancy tools and whatever, it's really helpful to the more we see them as tools, the more we see the mechanism working in a certain way in order to have the tool do its job. And the more we can use that as the basis for understanding emptiness as well. The tool is a bunch of parts. If you think of a car, and you think of all the parts that make up the car, and you think that they are the basis for our giving it the name car. And the car depends on the parts, and the parts depend on the car. All of those, it is said that thinking about that diminishes your attachment to the car. Your projection of some wonderful quality to an idea of the car starts to diminish when you see it as these parts. So that's something that you can apply as you choose your tools for doing your plumbing. A hammer is a hammer is a hammer.
I felt that in looking at the manual for the thing I was working on, because it was kind of a fancy system. There were a lot of parts, but if you just kind of took it slowly, all the parts just went to a particular place, They weren't each part wasn't an invention I had never seen before. It was a tube into a thing, into another thing, and you twist the thing, and then you just kept going slowly through it. It was fine. But the intimidation of something being fancy felt like I could never accomplish it. So that rings so true to me.
Which is an imputation.
Because it feels like if I was just to believe, it's fancy, so I can't, there's no way I can understand it. I just have to call somebody to do it. But if I just use my intelligence to try and understand it, then it was a lot easier for sure.
The assignment of the fancy label show, if you really look into that, why is it fancy? It's only a thing that does something else. Imputate. You impute something on it's not there again.
Yeah.
I had
On your camera, no more.
I have a watch. It's a Swatch.
Oh, a different topic.
I had a mechanical watch and it broke, and I found myself in an airport and I bought a Swatch, and it worked so much better than the old one, and kept time better. And anyway, I started using at the time it cost something like $30. And I came to America and I saw there were these ads for a kind of watch, Bell it was called. And I remember seeing these photographs of the Bell, and they gave it this sort of strong, massive quality. And I'd never heard of Bell watches before, and I was walking down 57th Street and I saw a Bell watch, and I walked into the shop and I asked the guy, "So what's special about Bell watches?" I asked the price, and he said it was $1,500 or something like that. And I said, "Well, but what's special about it?" And he saw what I was wearing. And he said, "The chip that makes the Bell watch function and the chip in your Swatch are the same chip. It's only the casing that's different."
You let the
You
cat
should
out.
have told me that, yeah. That's the wrong thing.
It
Did
was
Julian
wonderful.
have a Swatch that Nikki tool?
Yeah, he has a Swatch too.
He
Yeah,
didn't know how to
I think
do
he taught
something
him how to
else.
use it.
You asked the right question.
Yeah, it's so true. But
So, but it's it's wonderfully profound
Very
because
profound.
yes.
Just the case,
It's
come
the
on.
perfect.
The box it comes
so,
in, that's great.
in
Perfect
terms of
analogy.
what we've been talking, so much of today's fancy things are merely
Just
the
casing.
packaging. Yeah.
That's right.
It's so true. I know it.
So all of these things, again, help us diminish our attachment, help us develop contentment. Not just contentment, but an appreciation for the mere tool quality
Utility
of the
thing,
thing.
yeah.
And help us. We do need tools. As I say, there's nothing wrong with the tools, even cameras. The problem is with our attachment, our desire. Why is that a problem? Because that's what makes us unhappy.
Just, yeah. It's really interesting to think about branding and
That hit a nerve, yes.
yeah, branding and marketing and things like that, because it's certainly something of your mind, like it's seeing the association to something else, to something else, to something else, the story that a company tells. And I feel like it's like to be discerning as a person, don't scratch me, okay. To be discerning as a person about what the story is actually being told, not the story they're trying to tell you, but what it actually, like you said, like what's different than this to this, and it's the same chip, so that's the only story I need to know.
Yeah.
It's wild.
But you know, you're a musician, and you know the difference between a crummy guitar and a good guitar, and so the quality of a tool is also important.
Yeah, it's true.
And
Because it will last you too, that's, I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest, maybe the biggest quality that I guess you could find in a tool is that you can keep one forever. That's the best tool, if you need it probably, you know, that something could just work, you know, and that you could have the intelligence to fix it, and that it could be repaired back to its original state is kind of like the best case, I suppose.
Like the Stradivarius that woman brought in. Not this guy we know's girlfriend, the first violin in Jacksonville Symphony, she has a Strat. You met her,
I
right?
don't think I met her, but you told me about her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she says Strat, she doesn't mean Stratic.
Right,
She means
she's
the Stradivarius.
Stradivarius. Amazing.
I wouldn't even touch it. I figured I'd ruin it. I have this knack with things. Souffles fall when I walk in the room.
so
A lot of big points here. A lot of,
His Holiness had brought us to, you know, working at developing a Marxist attitude rather than a capitalist one, or realizing that capitalism can help society, but that we also have to work towards assuming responsibility for the members of our society. And we have to do both. That's why he calls himself half Marxist.
yeah.
And to whatever degree we can contribute to our society. Well, let me ask, how do you feel about taking what we've been talking about and applying it to the greater society rather than just my own self?
How I feel about it?
No, how do we do it?
Oh, how do we do it? We have to somehow change the mind of the people we're talking to, or point out something,
It seems to be that it's always
awaken them.
the way you can affect the greater thing is by being a piece of the greater thing that's affected. It seems to always be the answer, because we can't change anyone else's mind, is that correct?
Yes, that's very good.
They have the same chip. We all have the same chip.
We've all got the same chip, just different casing.
But we have to believe that we have the
What?
capacity to do that. And that takes some thinking.
That takes,
Some thinking.
yes, but thinking is important here.
Online comments.
So it goes, the 7-point cause and effect, equalizing and exchanging self with others, is very helpful. True. The 7-point cause and effect method for generating
Jesus' mother, remember they claim.
and equalizing and exchanging self for others. These are the
Yeah,
two
the
methods for generating bodhicitta that Laurie is mentioning. The subject, the consciousness at the time of conception, came from a previous moment's consciousness. Because it is a consciousness, it did not arise from a dissimilar class. No beginning can be found. Every birth from egg or womb requires a mom. So, yes, these are the two things that we discussed. When we think of consciousness, there can be no beginning because each moment of consciousness has to come from a cause that is similar in nature to the effect. And the only thing that can be the cause of a moment of consciousness is a prior moment of consciousness in the same continuum. And there can therefore not be a first moment of consciousness. And consciousness, what is it called? Incarnates or comes into being within a being that needs to be born from an egg, therefore from a mother. That's what is being. This is sort of explaining what we started talking about at the beginning. Darren, are there more comments?
That's it.
Okay, so thank you for that. And we're being asked to pray tonight for the victims of the earthquake in Tibet.
Yes.
And Ria Gorman and Peter Yarrow.
Peter Yarrow's famous.
Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Peter, Paul, yeah.
They sang it the last summer.
What?
It's a joke, never mind. Doesn't need repeating.
Casualties of Los Angeles fires too.
Yes. I saw the pictures on the news.
It's very scary, the wind is, the houses are just going up.
Like matchbox. What those people do, well, now they're homeless.
So, contentment. So, I'm going to throw in, we've been talking about the logical things that we can think about to develop contentment. But there are times when we get overwhelmed by desires, and we can catch ourselves. We can say, my goodness, I keep getting sucked into these thoughts. Maybe you feel that when you are trying to find a new guitar, and you just get pulled. And one of the things you can do is pray for calm, pray for contentment, pray for clarity, pray that you can find the contentment necessary and the clarity necessary to find the tool that just suits you, rather than being influenced by all the different pulls that advertising and consumerism use to affect us. So prayer, I'm just throwing in the idea in all these exercises that we've been discussing, these methods for bringing about peace of mind, patience, perseverance, here contentment, praying. And, we're talking about secular ethics, so it's not that we have to pray to someone, though we can if we wish to, but we can simply develop a profound wish that we can find the peace of mind to make our decision in a clear way in order to benefit society. So prayer is just a good tool. Okay, so we shall read the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels, and we are praying for Ria Gorham and Peter Yarrow, all the people who have died in the earthquake in Tibet, and all the people who have died in the fire in California and in so many other places in the world today. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavat is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha, the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciples. They are from a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Sangha, I prostrate to the Sangha of the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. And let us read the 8th verse on training the mind. with the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. When I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest among all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of generously treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness, directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the eight worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. Now we read the prayer for a swift return of Chögyam Rinpoche. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of one wearing saffron robes. Guru Samtuang Doje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great tortured doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of Victor Losang's teachings, spread them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening, yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serve the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence end, to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by Bodhicitta, drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings, and wish-fulfilling jewel, return to the glory of Losang Tempe, magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karmayama, and Srimati Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors. May you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.